I was grade
a
A,
lot of
man.
no, a lot of my wild days were kind of captured. Some of them on social media, but they were captured before social media was really popular. So captured like more on MySpace, you know what I mean? Like and like Yahoo chats and stuff like that. So all these things are gone, thankfully. All right, we're joined live this hour by Miguel Paredes. He is, I believe, the founder of Rebel Radio.
Yeah.
And you know, Soul Rebel Radio has been around for many a year, and they've done some incredible work. And we're gonna talk about everything you've done with Soul Rebel Radio, and we're gonna get into all that. But before we do that, I want to ask you, how did you get involved, man? How did you get involved with radio? How did you get involved with the movement? How did you get involved with knowing all these people? And where did you get these ideas to bridge so much like culture and politics? And yeah, tell us how it all got started.
Yeah, man, cool. Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity, man. Much love to your folks that are checking these things out. I really appreciate like these oral traditions and these oral histories that you're trying to capture. You know, one of my mentors is Harry Gamboa, and he has this series called Chicano Male Unbonded, and he tells you when you're taking your photo, like, all right, I want you to project yourself, you know, 100 years from now. What do you want people to remember about the Chicanos 100 years from now? So this is a really wonderful opportunity to share with you. So I appreciate that first and foremost. So I'll start, you know, with my family history, man. I grew up in Frogtown, son of immigrants who crossed the border, you know, as undocumented people. My pops ran the hills. He's a fail, so he had to run the hills and shit. And he was a soccer player, so he likes to tell a story that there was a cat next to him who was telling him like, oh, you're too little, you're too skinny, you're not gonna make it. And my pops, you know, burned his ass and fucking, you know, made it over here and shit. And my mom, she's got green eyes and blonde hair, so they like her kind. And at the border, they were very welcoming to her, and they let her cross very easily. My parents met and fell in love in Frogtown, in Legion Valley, right there by Dodger Stadium. They are both in the same hometown, San Martin de Hidalgo, Jalisco. I'm very proud of that. So from my San Martin side, we call ourselves Raneros, and from our Frogtown side, I'm, you know, Frogtown representing forever. So you know, I got the frogs on both sides, man. And you know, growing up with folks who are poor, undocumented people, it kind of really informed me for the rest of my life. Like, I remember when I was about maybe, I don't know, like 8 or 9 years old, me and my brother were at the Jack in the Box in San Isidro with my Tío Chuy and Paz Descanse. And I was like, hey, where are my parents at? Like, why aren't they here at this, you know, burger joint with me? And it wasn't later on until I realized that they were undocumented and they were being crossed by the coyote. And so we had to wait in San Isidro because that was like a point where we could reunite with them, you know? And so once I became older and realized, you know, that my people were not appreciated in this country, it completely informed my politics for the rest of my life. Like, I went to John Marshall High School in LA, in Northeast LA, Big Bad, Nella. And you know, I had a really wonderful experience there. Like, it kind of informed like sort of like my two trajectories in life, which are politics and like media. I really appreciate, you know, fucking around with media. So in terms of my politics, like I went to the Chicano Youth Leadership Conference back in 1993. Shout out to all the good people that used to organize that over there and still do. It was the one that I went to was at Soca University over there near Malibu. And that's where I met Sal Castro and shit. And that's, I got, you know, baptized as a Chicano. I mean, up to that point, I was a Mexican American, or maybe I was Mexican, but I wasn't really like American. And you know, and so for me, it was kind of like I grew up in an era where the Chicano movement had kind of like gone on a downward sort of trajectory, I'll say. And so for me, it was like I was going to Marshall High School. We had the most diverse student body probably in like the United States. We had like 130 countries represented when I was there. And then, you know, and so for me, I grew up in Frogtown, you know, went to Marshall High School, was really diverse, but all my people lived and sounded like me. And one other thing that happened at Marshall High School is that I was part of what was called Campus News that still exists there. So I thought I was going to be like Fred Rogan or Vince Scully, and I was all into sports and still love sports, represent, I love sports. So I was like the little sportscaster there at Campus News. And, you know, I used to film the games and like do the on-air personality and write the scripts. And I loved it. I really loved it. And I remember one year, my senior year, I asked my teacher, who I have no shame in calling out, Harley Haas, that son of a bitch, at John Marshall High School. I asked him one day, like, hey, like, what's up? Like, why don't I get any interns to like CNN or Channel 7 or Channel 9, which he had hooked up to, KCOW, and, and all these other KBC stations. And he like very matter of fact, bluntly told me, like, oh, it's because you have an accent. And I was like, what? Like, and mind you, like back then I didn't have any political understanding. So I was more shocked at the fact that I had an accent. I was like, what the fuck? Like, what do you mean I have an accent? Like everybody that I know sounds like I do. Like it was a shocker to be told that I had an accent, and then later on realized that this was being a racist prick. But back then it wasn't cool to be Latino. It wasn't cool to be bilingual. We had to kind of forge ahead without sort of that groundwork being laid. And so when I got to Cal State Northridge, I got there because I read articles by Rudy Acuña, and I was like, that old man right there, that's what I want to learn from and be mentored by. And so I got to go there, and I got a chance to, work with him or be mentored by him, and other folks like Roberto Cifuentes in Paz Descanse, who was a wonderful man who went to UCLA, and the suavest, like most Mexican nationalist cat I know. He's the one that helped publish a lot of like my poetry and stuff, because I used to do this thing called Floricanto back at Cal State Northridge. We used to do this thing called the Northridge Chicano Literary Forum, No Chilifo. So it was like a workshop where like, unproven like cats like me could come in and workshop their poetry or their stories or whatever. And so we used to do a bunch of stuff at Cal State Northridge including these Floricanto events, flower song, because poetry in English doesn't really mean shit, right? But flower song, that's a very clear thing what you're talking about, right? So
Flower song,
flower songs, right? So we used to do these little kind of events, like, okay, it's Zapata's birthday, or it's Valentine's Day, or it's spring, or it's whatever, the equinox or whatever. So we would pick like an important date during the month and organize these events. Me and my homeboy Chuy Torres, and it was wonderful. We would do like a little kind of like event. We would have a little stage, a little microphone. We'd give people a bunch of chalk, and so they would chalk up this whole area around the school with their art, and they were poets, and people would go up and share their stories or their poetry, and it was beautiful. We did it once a month, man. It was love. And so that kind of also informed like a little bit of what I do with Soul Rebel Radio, because when we started 15 years ago on Earth Day, April 22nd, we just celebrated our 15th anniversary. The idea was that KPFK was very old, white, and left. Like super like commie and like kind of like anarchist and all that good shit. And I love it because like my personal politics are like Zapatismo, Cubanismo, like like the Bolivarian Revolution. Like those are the things that inform me in terms of my politics growing up, as well as the Chicano movement, obviously. But like I kind of started as a Chicano nationalist. And then like I kind of took over the mecha there at Cal State Northridge. I was the chair there as a Chicano internationalist, because I was coming in on some Zapatismo wave, kind of like going up against like the Chicano nationalists, like kind of Chicano swords that were like still kind of giving their lazos to the next chair each year. And I came in on some like fuck that shit, I ain't playing that, and kind of changed up the whole like thing, at least at Cal State Northridge. And there we took over student government a few times. One of my favorite memories in terms of some of the things that I've been very fortunate to be a part of in my life was we wiped our ass with the fraternity boys and girls at Cal State Northridge one year. We took out like 15 out of the 16 seats when we decided to take over student government. We called ourselves We the People. It was the Black Student Union, the MECHA, the Filipino American Student Association. And then we worked with like the Muslims, the Jews, the Armenians, like Central Americans, everybody and their mama came to support us. And we wiped our ass with the fraternity boys and girls at Cal State Northridge one year, and came in and completely like revolutionized student government and started handing out, like all kinds of resources to all these organizations and stuff. Kind of like on some like, on some rob from the rich and steal from the poor Robin Hood shit, or rob from the rich and give to the poor and stuff. So we started distributing all these resources, and like there's things that are happening at Cal State Northridge that are part of like, I'll say, my legacy there. Like we did a Independence Day celebration where we were celebrating Mexican and Central American Independence Day, END, Independence. We did a high school conference that still goes on like 20 years some later. So we established a lot of really cool things that I felt were important for us as Chicanos to kind of go outside of our little bubble and be like, yo, like we need to start thinking of the rest of the world. Like I'm on some Che Guevara shit, and you guys are over here talking about fucking, you know, like with all due respect, like our Chicano kind of, you know, folks that unfortunately have not reached that level of victory that we envisioned in the 1960s when we were talking about reclaiming Aztlan and doing all these things. Like I mean, this might be a kind of controversial statement, and this is a good platform to share it on, but like I wholeheartedly believe that like as Chicanos, like we lost the fucking battle. Like I hope we understand that. I hope we come to terms with that. Like we heal from that and sort of like move forward and figure out how we're gonna win this shit, you know, win the war at the end, because we've clearly lost the battle in terms of like Chicano nationalism. Like we don't have any political power. We don't have any economic power. We don't have any fucking leadership that we can point to other than folks like, you know, Luis Rodriguez and folks that are doing the work. You know, there's not too many like Chicano leaders that folks respect on a sort of pan, sort of Latino, pan Chicanx or whatever folks want to call themselves nowadays. There isn't folks like that on that level. I remember one time.
Why didn't you do it?
Why don't I do what?
Why didn't you become this great leader that you're talking about? I see some body behind you, man. Like what? Grow out your mustache, man.
Right here, that's the homie, man. In Zapatismo, we were taught mandado bendeciendo, right? And when I've been in positions of like leadership, I say, it's always been when I've been chosen to be in those positions of leadership. Like other than like the mecha chair that I decided like, nah, fuck this shit, we're gonna change this shit up. Like I just didn't feel like I'm that person to be like that, you know, like I'm not interested in becoming an elected official. I'm not interested in like, I mean, I'm interested in like going to the hills and start training for the revolution, but I don't think there's enough cats like that are down and shit. I'm not trying to be a martyr. Like I'm trying to live for the rest of my life in Los Angeles at my fucking beautiful home and shit. So in East LA. So unless I see a army of us that are fucking down, like I'm not gonna be. I don't need to be on a Che Guevara shirt. Like I'm good, man. So, but I do think that as like Chicanos, as you know, folks from Latin America that are settling here in the United States, like we have a big responsibility to each other and stuff. And I think that you know, the Chicano nationalism trip was like important because it taught us about our culture and about our history, about being proud of who we are, about our leaders like Zapata and other folks. But like, how do we like build from that? Like when I was going to Chiapas and building with the Zapatistas and interviewing Subcomandante Marcos, it wasn't to like, oh, I'm gonna go down to Chiapas and fucking have a fake gun too and have a pasamontañas. It was like, how does that apply to us here in Los Angeles in the belly of the motherfucking beast? And the reason I know that is because I went to Chiapas when I was 21 years old. We had a class at Cal State Northridge. It was an English class. I was an English major over there. At least I was an English major and I did a bunch of other shit. But I did this class and we went. Part of the trip was going for spring break to Chiapas to sort of, you know, like build and whatever and stuff, right? So unbeknownst to me, we stayed at this hotel called the Nabalum, which turns out to be the CIA headquarters in Chiapas at the time of the Zapatismo sort of movement. But we had a great time. And so when we had an opportunity, 13 Chicanos, we basically like shook the white folks that we were with and went up to the Zapatista communities, thanks to Roberto Flores of the Eastside Cafe. And we got to, you know, like got to talk to the Comandancia, to Comandante David and Moises. And I remember as a spry 21-year-old enthusiastic kid, like I was like, hey, so you know, how can we help you? And they kind of like look at each other like, help us? Like, fool, you guys don't got shit going on. What are you talking about? Like, and so he made it clear to me, like, well, the way you can help us is go back to your community and organize. And so for me, that I took that wholeheartedly, you know. And when I went to Cuba, I went because of Che Guevara, and then I got to see Fidel Castro speak in the 50th anniversary of the Moncada attack in Santiago de Cuba, and I was like, holy shit, like, this motherfucker is the most brilliant human being in the last fucking century, as far as I'm concerned. Fidel Castro is a fucking man. He's a brilliant fucking human being. But I went because of Che Guevara, and then I got to see the Cuban Revolution for what it is, and I was like, holy shit, man. And I remember talking one time. We were like, you know, in an audience with Pombo, who fought with Che in the Congo and Fawiche in Cuba, and I asked homeboy like, hey, so stupid, you know, like I was 20, probably 3 or 24 at the time, and I was like, hey, so what was Che Guevara like, right? And homeboy turns to his homeboys like, what the fuck kind of question is that? Like, he was a human being like you and me, fool. Like, next question, you know. So for me, that kind of demystified like, oh, like Che Guevara and Zapata, they're just human fucking beings. They're flawed people like the rest of us. And so as soon as we as human beings start, and as Chicanos start treating each other as human beings with respect, like I think we'll have an opportunity to build more leaders. Like right now, we're too busy being crabs in a bucket and fucking putting each other down and talking shit and, oh, that fool, this and that, and I know this fool's history, and I know this thing about him, or I think I know this about that person. And so we're really quick to like destroy each other as community instead of building each other up. And I remember one time Dr. Melina Abdullah, shout out to Black Lives Matter, by the way, all day. Dr. Melina Abdullah one time asked like, hey, so where are the Latino leaders are like, you know, sort of Black Lives Matter? And I sent her a private message, which I then kind of, you know, shared with her. I've said something publicly, but I spoke with her privately about this, and I'm cool sharing it publicly now. But I was like, the fact of the matter is like, we don't have fucking Latino leaders. That's why fucking nobody speaks out in favor of Black Lives Matter. Like, we don't have people that can speak out, because as soon as you say that, oh, like this fool like doesn't support Chicanos, he's a Black lover, or he's a token for African American people. It's like, nah, like we're trying to build. And so for me, I've always been about building bridges, about working with other communities, about stepping outside of my sort of box of my comfort zone and rocking it out, man. And so I've been an organizer my entire adult life. I started when I was about 15, 16, kind of deciding that, oh, this is something that I think I need to be a part of and stuff. And then when I went to that Chicano Youth Leadership Conference, I was like, oh, I'm baptized. I'm a Chicano. Now I know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm going to be dedicated to the movement. And then I went to Cal State Northridge, and I like to believe that I've done, you know, some pretty good work out in the community in favor of not only the Chicanos, but, you know, the poor working class people in general. And yeah, man, I'm you know, we're going to keep going and keep doing what we're doing and stuff. And for me, like, being born and raised in Los Angeles, like I want to be here for the rest of my life. And so for me, it's been important to really like sort of ground my roots. And we live in a capitalist system, and unfortunately, like I've been, you know, sort of forced to kind of work, and thankfully I've been blessed with really great working opportunities that have earned me some good money and stuff. And I was able to buy my home here in East LA, and I plan to be here for the rest of my life, man. So you know, I hope to continue to build with folks, and yeah, hopefully, man, we'll find some good leaders out there. And like, you know, like I'm not opposed to being in leadership positions. I'm not afraid of it. I think part of it is, you know, people are afraid of like the scrutiny and stuff. I'm not, but I just don't want to be like you know, like known for like, oh, like this was some fucking person that's out for himself and trying to make a name for himself. Like I think we have enough you know, Tony Villarregosas in the world that have ruined Chicano politics for at least a decade here in LA. So it doesn't seem like that's, you know, something for me to go get into. Like I said, none of us are training in the hills in an organized manner where we're going to be taking the streets back and, you know, blowing up the intersections at the freeway so that we can lock down the city in a military style operation. Like I'm fucking down. Like Dodger Stadium is going to be my home base in the revolution. Like I'm ready, man. But like we're not, man. So it's cool, man. Like I mean, my beloved Frogtown is down the street from Dodger Stadium. That's going to be my lifeline. So, but you know, like you know, it's interesting, man. I used to work at LAUSD back in the day, and I used to travel with my homeboy Jake Paredes, who I think you interviewed the other day, right? Yeah. So me and him were roommates back in the day. Like we used to live together, be in the Cal State Northridge Master's program together, you know, like work together at LAUSD. And I remember like we would drive to work and back, and I was like, I had so many fucking violent, fucking militant thoughts that I was like, man, this is bad for my fucking health. I need to move back to LA. And so I've been back in LA for like at least the last 15 years, it seems like. And yeah, man, I plan to be here for the rest of my life, man. You know, this is home base, man. Wherever I go, this is still home base. It always comes back to LA.
Damn. All right, so tell us how Soul Rebel Radio got started.
Let's do this. So the way it got started was a group of us under the direction, I'll say, of folks who are tied to to the Communist Party. My people's the Cambron, Rosana and Arturo Cambron. They helped sort of sponsor a trip to Cuba, and then subsequently to Venezuela. A bunch of us continued to go. So we went to this thing called the Chicano Youth. I'm sorry, that was the Chicano Youth Leadership Conference. We went to the World Festival of Youth and Students in Venezuela in 2005. A group of us went out there, and we called ourselves the LA Circle because we were like, all right, we're going to go to Venezuela and represent it, for the Bolivarian Revolution, but we're not strictly on some like communist shit. So we're going to go under your little fucking communist flag, but we're not strictly limited to your communist fucking ideals. So we call ourselves the LA Circle, went out to Venezuela, got to see Hugo Chavez speak, and he's a brilliant fucking human being. I was really grateful for that trip. Got to go up to the hills, the slums of in Caracas, and got to see how beautiful Caracas is. To me, like, if and when the revolution happens, it's going to start here in LA, in case y'all didn't know. California is going to become its own independent country. California would be the 5th richest economy in the world. Los Angeles is going to be the capital. Sorry, Sacramento and the Bay Area. Like, we're going to be the capital. But anyways, I foresee that when our revolution happens, it'll be more closely aligned to like the Bolivarian Revolution than like, say, like the Zapatista Revolution, where we're going to be taking over the entire Dodger Stadium Hill and building an autonomous community. Like, that's not going to happen. We're going to get shot. We're not going to have like a communist style, like, Cuban Revolution, where we're going to start in the countryside and then, derail the train in Santa Clara. Like, that's not going to happen here either. Like, it's very likely going to be like some populist leader that comes up through the ranks, and then really like, holds it down, and like a la Hugo Chavez. And to me, like, Caracas is the most similar like city to LA that I've ever been to. Like, it has like, like these beautiful like slums where like the people live up in the hills, like crazy like style. And then you have like all these like affluent communities down at the bottom with like, a bunch of plastic surgery and sort of that reality. And it's a mixed economy. It's a trip, man. Like, one thing I'll say about Hugo Chavez is that he didn't like murder all of his opposition the way Fidel Castro and other folks did. And that's why you see like all that opposition in Venezuela. So when we went to Venezuela and came back, we were so enthusiastic about the Bolivarian Revolution and about this World Festival of Youth and Students. And we were like, man, how do we as LA Circle continue to operate and sort of work with each other? And so we
But don't you think you should have jailed some people? I mean, maybe you don't have to kill everybody.
Oh yeah, fuck yeah. If that's me, I'm not as nice. I'm killing motherfuckers, especially if my life was on the line and they try to kill me, like, motherfuckers' heads will roll and they're gonna be on stakes on fucking television. Like, fuck that. Like, I would. Hey,
all I'm saying is that, like, that's often brought up, like, it's a good thing. Like, hey, the Bolivarians are good because they don't do things. They don't throw people in jail. There's no gulag. There's no prisons. Like, shit. They don't shoot people. But, and that's true. But, like, because of that, you have, like, Juan Guaido, like, running around, the U.S., hanging out at the Congress. I mean, so, no, he should be in jail.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that ultimately it's like a good thing that, that he didn't do. I didn't even notice that Rock was there the whole time. Ultimately, I think it's a good thing that he didn't do that. Like, it's the more humane approach to a revolution. I appreciate it. I think that's the way we would have to do it. But at the end of the day, it's a revolution, and if folks are trying to kill you, like, shit, some heads are gonna have to roll. So I think that was very humane of Hugo Chavez to decide that he didn't want, and especially after the coup attempt, which, if you haven't seen The Revolution Will Not Be Televised, I highly recommend it. So if you want to understand the truth about Venezuela, like 1 million people came out to defend Hugo Chavez, and that's why he was the president, not because of some like zombie-like thing stuff. People always criticize like the Cuban Revolution too, like, oh, those people were just controlled by Fidel Castro. Like, nah, they got 6 million people, homie. Like they're not that stupid and shit. Like, they're actually the most intelligent people I've ever come across in the world. So they know damn well. And in Venezuela, like, I think that from what my experience, my firsthand personal experience, like, I think that the Venezuelan Revolution wasn't as how should I say it politely? They weren't as disciplined as the Cuban Revolution or like the Zapatistas, for example. Like, these homies would have a meeting at 10 a.m., arrive at 10:30 with an arepa with no excuse. And it was just like, damn, fools, like, you fools are lazy and stuff. So I think there was a combination of sort of like folks that were like kind of convenencieros that decided to be a part of the revolution. And then the fact that he didn't go on this killing spree, and the fact that, that he's no longer there. Maduro, seems like a cool cat, but he probably wouldn't be able to drive, Hugo Chavez's bus and shit. That's a reference obviously to the fact that homeboy was a bus driver and shit. Like, God bless him and shit, but he's not Hugo Chavez and shit, And so hopefully they'll have some leadership continue that revolution, because I think it's a really beautiful example and stuff. And like I said, the one that will be most closely aligned with us. So anyway, so Rebel, we come back from Venezuela, we're all inspired. Like, we're like, fuck yeah, like, how do we continue building and working together? And so at that time, my homeboy Armando Gudinho was the program director. And so we wrote a proposal. And we hit them up. I call a couple of homeboys that used to work with me on Zapatista stuff. We used to have a people of color space in Chiapas called Estación Libre. And so Estación Libre Los Angeles was Ella, ELLA. And so a couple of the cats from Ella were like, I call them the bastard fathers of Soul Rebel Radio, because they were like, hey, you should propose a radio program to Armando. And I was like, oh yeah, that sounds fucking great. And so I ran with it. And these fools just kind of like sat back and watched me do it. And so when I went to Venezuela with these other folks from LA Circle, like, those folks were enthusiastic and ready to do some stuff. And it was cool. And we had a really diverse group. It was, like some Jewish homies, Lex Stepling, my Armenian homegirl Hasnik, my Vietnamese homegirl Teresa Dang, who got run over by the Minutemen, a bunch of other folks that, some Chicanos as well, Dr. Oriel Maria Siu, who's a Central American, and a bunch of different folks came together from this LA Circle, and we formed Soul Rebel Radio. And our intention, like I said, was that KPFK was very old, white, and left, and we wanted to come in and provide some youth and some flavor and some like new sort of blood. And I'm really glad that we did. Like, we've been on for 15 years. I'm gonna give a quick little plug if you don't mind. Our next show is this Friday. We're calling it the Coronavirus Crisis. Obviously, Corona's on everybody's mind. And we thought, well, why don't we do a program about it and stuff? And so we had been talking about how do we transition Soul Rebel Radio from what we've been, and I'll talk a little bit more about it, to what we want to be in the future. And so this Friday is like one of our first sort of real life examples of what that could look like. So we interviewed a few folks who've had the COVID, who had the coronavirus. We interviewed a few doctors. And so we're talking to actual doctors and people who've been victims of the coronavirus. We're not talking to like political heads or folks out there who are protesting, or folks who have conspiracy theory opinions about shit. Like, we're going to talk to some real people and stuff. So hopefully check it out. It's going to be this Friday at 3 p.m. on 90.7 KPFK and kpfk.org if you're not in LA. And so with Soul Rebel, we were trying to do like a monthly program. We based it on a theme. With my Floricanto background, I was like, oh, we picked a theme each month, so let's do that. And so the theme was, like feminism, or high school youth, or the prison industrial complex, or, homophobia, or the climate change, or whatever. So each month, in a year, we would pretty much do about 10 programs, all original content. We've had some pretty amazing human beings come through the program, and I'll just name drop a few, because it's lovely like that. Wendy Carrillo, I'll start with her. She's my assembly member here in East LA. She started off with us. She then went on to do Knowledge is Power with Power 106, and went on to do incredible work all over the place. Like, I always tell her that I thought she was going to be like Oprah Winfrey and take over like the media, but she decided to get into politics, and like, she's one of the people that I consider like a leader in our community. She's definitely somebody I respect and have love for. And I want to see more people like her who are outspoken, who have a story to share, who really are about their business, And so she started off with us, and I'm really proud of the fact that she was our first like sort of big interview. She interviewed Dolores Huerta. We were like, oh wait, so we could talk to like famous people too. Like, we've had Mike Davis on, and Sixto Rodriguez, and Tommy Chong, and Su Comandante Marcos. I'll tell you about him in a little bit. And so we had a bunch of dope people that have been part of our program. But it was Wendy that first kind of gave us the understanding that, hey, we can, it's bigger than just this little circle, guys. It's not just your little collective, and it's not just about what you want to do collectively. Like, I got ambition, and that's okay to be a part of your collective. Like in Zapatismo, we're taught that we want to create un mundo donde quepan muchos mundos. And it's like, yeah, like, why can't we have people who have individual ambition be a part of our collective understanding as well. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And so we've also had folks like Lex Stepping, like I mentioned. He helped last year with what happened with the LA County jails. Like instead of converting jails into the prison pipeline, now they're going to be converted into mental health institutes. Shout out to Patrice Cullors and other folks of Reform LA. And other folks that have worked with that. So Lex Stepping is one of our homeboys. He was one of the original folks as well. Hector Flores and Jose Cano of Las Cafeteras were also part of our program. Jose Cano and Eduardo Arenas, a Chicano Batman, used to do this thing called the Kilowatts and Tiny Energy segment. And it's ironic because I was just talking about it with him yesterday. I went up to Santa Barbara with some friends to do this hike at some place called Tangerine Falls. Highly recommended in Montecito if you guys like to hike. It's a little treacherous, but it's fun. And so we were talking about this energy segment that Cano and Eduardo used to do called the Kilowatts and Tiny Energy segment on Soul Rebel Radio. And so this segment was like these two vatos from the hood talking about environmental issues as vatos from the hood, and hey fool, and this and that and the other. And it was really great. And my favorite like skit was they did this thing called Native King. And it was like their dream sequence of what it was like in the past. And so they go to Native King, to like the Burger King and order like a combo meal with the bear claw on the side and stuff like that, and natural spring water as their drink and stuff like that. So it was really cool. They used to do like reggae songs. Where does the energy come from? And stuff about the energy management system. It's the EMS. They would like combine their artistic talents to produce like these original like songs about climate change and about the global sort of crisis and stuff, and we would include them each month in our show. So we've been on for, like I said, 15 years. We would pick a theme each month. We've had something like about 200 plus members of the collective participate. There's a bunch of other folks who have participated. I don't think I can name all of them. And we've done probably something close to like 150 original programs now. I saw that you interviewed Dr. Gabriel Gutierrez the other day. God bless him. Shout outs to him. He actually helped publish one of a chapter in his anthology on Soul Rebel Radio, because I was able to do my master's program at Cal State Northridge, and my thesis was on Soul Rebel Radio. So I was able to document like all the folks that we've interviewed, like Mike Davis, que Dolores Huerta, que all these different other folks and stuff. And I'll share with you two quick stories about Soul Rebel Radio, and then if it's okay, I'll talk a little bit about the future of that.
Sure,
so we interviewed Su Comandante Marcos. So the way that happened was that we were, Estación Libre was part of what we call the Autonomous Peoples Collective here in Southern California. So in my head, in our head, the Autonomous Peoples Collective included spaces like Estación Libre. Even though we were in Chiapas, we had our like satellite here in LA, right? It included spaces like the Eastside Cafe. We had like satellite, sort of like homeboys at the cafe on A, the Rudy Acuña Gallery over there in Oxnard. We had our folks in Santana, at the El Centro Cultural de Mexico. We had a place called in Echo Park called Casa del Pueblo. We had the South Central Farm. Shout outs to them. And so we had a bunch of folks that were sort of part of this Autonomous Peoples Collective. And so we ended up going during La Otra Campaña en el Otro Lado, because the Zapatistas were talking about La Otra Campaña. And then it was like, well, how about all the Mexicans out here in the US? And then it became En el Otro Lado. And so the Zapatistas came out to Tijuana, to the Multiculti there. It's like an abandoned theater where they do like punk rock shows and shit. And so we did this this big thing there. And so we got down there, whatever's, and we kind of got drafted into being like the security for Subcomandante Marcos. Like, hey, we're gonna have to do security for Marcos and shit. And I was like, fuck it, all right, cool. So I'm old school, and we weren't allowed to have like weapons and stuff there. So I just got a couple of big clumps of cement. I put those in my pocket in case shit got crazy. And so, we're doing security for him, whatever. And then at the end, we take him up to his little green room, which was just like basically like the abandoned like place where they used to like roll the films and stuff for the movie theater. And so we take him up there to, kicking his shit, and, take him his Coca-Cola, because that was, he's a sexist pig that likes the lovely ladies just like anybody else and stuff. And no way, not Marcos, right? And so we're up there and stuff. And so I see him, and I'm like, hey, homeboy, like, here's my recording device. I'm going to need you to record a message in English for the Chicanos. And I just handed it to him. And he looked at me like, this motherfucker didn't even ask me. He's just telling me what the fuck I need to do. Like, all right, I like his style and shit. So he records some shit and he gives it back to me later on. And he's like, here you go. And when he shared, I'll paraphrase, right? First of all, he gave us a shout out. We play it. It'll be a part of the show we air on Friday. Like we do a little collage. Luis Rodriguez is part of that. Yeah. Tommy Chong and other folks. And so he gives us a shout out, a little name drop. It was dope. But then the message was really dope. He said, some people go to sleep at night and dream about a better tomorrow. Some people work throughout the whole night to make that dream a reality. And that's who we are, the Zapatistas and shit. And I was like, damn. Well, to paraphrase, right? And I'm like, damn, straight up, that's what it is. Like, some people work for it and some people dream about it, So I think it's important for us to make that decision. Are we going to keep dreaming or are we going to be about it, And so with Soul Rebel, like one of my favorite programs that we ever did was it was way back in 2006. We did an entire program about the indigenous people, about the Native American experience as a football game between the Redskins and the Patriots, right? And we were gonna reimagine history. We were gonna tell it like it is. So the Patriots kicked our fucking ass. They slaughtered us physically and literally, right? And the score indicated that they kicked our fucking ass. But it was really good. It was like at the Mississippi yard line with 15:69 on the clock and using actual historical figures as like the players and stuff. Like the first quarterback for the Patriots was Jesus Christ, who got beheaded in like the first drive. And then they came in and brought other players and stuff like that. So we've done some really dope creative stuff. We've been really fortunate. We do a combination of skits, interviews, news pieces. Anybody out there that wants to produce or create media or learn how to produce or create media, or like folks like, the Cafeteras and, Eduardo Chicano Batman, you want to learn how to refine your skills, like, come over here. We got you, man. We'll take care of you. And so we generally meet every Sunday at the station and we air like once a month. Right now we're going to be airing on Friday at 3 p.m. But what we're trying to do moving forward is do a lot more video content. So for this show, for example, we interviewed a doctor. We shared that. We interviewed folks who are victims of COVID. We'll share the full interview that we did and not the condensed sort of, edited version that we have to air for the radio. I did this little skit where I call it King COVID the 19th. So I created like what would like the virus be if it was a virus? What would be a king, right? And what would that king likely be like? It would probably be like Donald Trump, right? So what would the coronavirus as Donald Trump look and sound like? Well, that's what you're gonna get on Soul Rebel Radio this Friday at 3 p.m. King COVID the 19th. So we did a little skit about that, and did a couple other things. We did like an Olympic skit about all the countries in the world competing for trying to stay alive and who's doing the best. Obviously, the United States and China are doing probably the worst, and there's other countries that are doing a lot better than us. And hopefully, coming out of this portal that Arundhati calls this period that we're living a portal, and we get to decide what the new world's going to look like. And so hopefully folks are in for the ride, and hopefully we can imagine and create this world where many worlds coexist, where leaders are mandando obedeciendo, where the leaders are merely the spokespeople and the people at the bottom are really the people at the top that are getting to determine policy and determine and decide what's best, for us moving forward. When California becomes its own independent country, we'll be the 5th richest economy in the world, I'll remind you. So we'll get to determine where all those resources go in the future, and decide for ourselves what we want for our people and stuff. Maybe we want free healthcare for everybody. Maybe we want free education for everybody. Maybe some capitalist pigs are not going to appreciate that form of socialism, but fuck you and your mama and shit, So, so it's like whatever, man. So hopefully, like in the future, we're gonna get to create California and our beautiful city of Los Angeles in the way that we want to and stuff. So yeah, I look forward to that day. And for now, I'm gonna keep gardening and raising my chickens and smoking my herb and handling my business and shit. What am I supposed to do, man? Like I don't see enough of us like organized, ready to get down and take this shit back. So until that point happens and stuff, we're gonna have to decide if we're gonna kind of keep being asleep or if we want to work the whole night to make this shit happen.
Yeah. So where can people connect to the work of Soul Rebel Radio and the other projects you're on?
They'd like to connect to Soul Rebel. You can hit us up on Instagram. We're still, I'm 43 years old, so we're still on Facebook. We still try to do stuff on that. You can listen to us on the radio on kpfk.org as well on their website. I want to also do a plug for KPFK. If any of you out there have the means to support KPFK with $10, $100, $1,000, we really urgently need your support. KPFK has been around for 60 years. It's a listener-sponsored radio. One of a few left here in the United States as part of the Pacifica Network. Right now, we're facing a crisis. So if y'all like having platforms where folks can share their testimony and their stories and talk about some real shit, like we need your support at KPFK right now and stuff. So you can check out some of our content on KPFK's YouTube channel and stuff as well. And I'm also a board member with the ACLU of Southern California. We're also always in need of folks to connect to that. I would love to actually form an ACLU chapter here. I want to call it the East Side ACLU. And the East Side could be East LA, where I'm living now, or it could be Boyle Heights, which to me is like historical Mecca for the Chicanos. We could, you could be from City Terrace, you could be from Monterey Park, from Cudahy, from Southgate, from wherever. So if folks see, my information here on your Facebook stuff, if they want to send me a message and connect and form this ACLU chapter, I really want to hold the Los Angeles Sheriffs responsible and accountable here in this community. We also want to hold the LAPD accountable in Boyle Heights. We want to hold the city accountable in Boyle Heights, hold the county accountable here in unincorporated East LA. And I think that there really is like a organizing and power vacuum, especially for the Chicano community here in LA. And I think we have an opportunity to form something to hold people accountable. So I hope to form an ACLU Eastside chapter fairly soon. And I would really appreciate anybody's help who wants to, be about it and stuff. So yeah, man, good times and stuff. And I was gonna mention something else. Real quick too, man. I just finished working on Reform LA's Measure R here. It fucking seems like a lifetime ago, but it was in March. On March 3rd, we won the election here in LA County by 72%. So now anybody who has homelessness issues, who has substance abuse issues, who has mental health issues, in the future, instead of going to jail, now you're going to be diverted into programs, hopefully some wraparound services for you. I'm very proud of that as well. And, I'm going to continue to be an organizer moving forward. I helped do a bunch of stuff like a big 22,000 person event at Dodger Stadium in 2013. I helped save the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, for the entire country. You're all welcome. That was back in 2017. I've done a couple of other cool things in terms of organizing. I missed organizing the May Day rally this year. This is the first time in 8 years that I didn't get to organize that. So hopefully next year we'll come back strong, because it was fucking embarrassing that these fucking conservative forces trying to reopen society were out there on May Day in Los Angeles doing a fucking march and rally. And that's embarrassing for our city to have that happen when we're the largest May Day rally in the world, usually, at least for the last 20 years, it seems like. So, I hope to continue to be organizing in the future and keep on doing the good work that, that Creator has asked me to do here on Earth. And so I'm going to continue to be of service. And yeah, man, Zapata vive and la lucha sigue, man. So let's keep it rolling.
I love it. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
Likewise, thank you.
Where people connect to the work and your ongoing work. And thank you so much, Miguel, man. Just really appreciate it.
Thank you, man, and keep up the good work, man, and keep up the poetry, man. We need another Zapatista thing. The last thing I'll say is our word is our weapon. That's another thing that they taught me, and so it's important for you and other folks to share your weapons. Be very careful with your weapons. Our tongue could also serve as a weapon. Represent, right? So it's important that
out, man. You should bring me on your show, man. I need to promote.
We're definitely gonna have you on our show, man. Because we do it by theme. We like look for like opportunities to be able to like showcase folks. So I'm definitely gonna have you on our show for sure, man. And like I said, our word is our weapon. So keep up the good work, man. Thank you for all you do.
All right, thank you, brother.
All right, peace.